let's get started. So welcome everyone. Thank you very much for joining the webinar today on the topic of taking charge of your career. So before we get started, I just wanted to introduce Desi, who is one of our speakers, and then just to tell you a little bit about myself afterwards. So in terms of Desi, she is an Australian legal practitioner and she's a lecturer at the College of Law in Melbourne. And prior to this, she practiced in mid-tier suburban and private law firms. And she plays a very, very active role as an advocate for mental health. And she is a mental health first aid trainer. And she is a big advocate for mental health and also just the well-being of new lawyers and the profession as a whole. So we're very lucky to have her here with us today. So welcome,
thank you, Susan.
Desi.
Thank you very much.
Just a little pleasure. Just a little bit in terms of my role, I am the National Careers Professional with the College of Law, and I provide career services for all current PLT students and also alumni students as well. And I run individual career coaching sessions with students at the college and also webinars such as this one today. And my background is in careers education, working with one of the universities and law schools. And before that, I worked in human resources, which is now known as people and culture, and also across recruitment amongst a whole lot of different sectors. So just a couple of housekeeping before we get right into it. If we can just leave the questions until the end of the session. So we're going to try for 1:15 to finish the presentation, and then we'll have 15 minutes of questions. So if you can just write those in the Q&A section, rather than writing them into the chat box, that would be appreciated. And if we don't get through all the questions, then what we'll do is we will respond to the questions individually via email. We'll have the question and who has asked that. And a copy of the presentation and a recording will be sent after the session as well. So let's get started. So in terms of what we're going to cover today, the 4 topics are about how you can stay relevant in the legal landscape that is changing all the time. We're going to talk about building resilience and grit. We're going to talk about how important it is to look after your online brand and how you do that. And then we're going to also cover off just some opportunities that you can make yourself aware of, and basically putting yourself out there to grab those. And then we're also going to talk about the importance of developing your relationship collateral. And any questions after that, we will cover at the end of the session. So just starting off in terms of staying relevant in a changing legal landscape, the one thing that is constant is change. And if going through a pandemic at the moment is not testament to that, I don't know what is. So we are living in a VUCA environment, and that stands for volatile, uncertain, complex and ambiguous. And this is driven by a whole range of factors. It's run by the fact that there's customer demands for a better value in a highly competitive market, the influence of evolving technology and the impact of AI and technology, particularly in the legal profession, is really at the forefront at the moment. And also just the changes to the way we work and live. So that is just something that we're seeing now in terms of the way we're able to shift the way we work from working in an office environment to working at home 24/7. So some of the big kind of influences on the future of work then include the technological change, and that's being the age of big data, cloud computing, also the demographic and social change. We have an ageing population, we've got growing diversity, global mobility, and changed expectations around the workforce as well. So the nature of the work is that it's going to become more digital and automated, and how work is done, it will be anytime, anywhere. So this has implications for us in terms of digital fluency, learning how we can leverage technology, the concept of continuously learning, and developing skills that can't be automated. So I think that the main point here is that we have to continuously think about how can we as individuals keep up with this, and how can we add value and focus on value creation. So the key is to understand how we can create that value and how we're able to communicate this in a very authentic way. So standing still is definitely not what we are able to do, or we will be just left for dead. I think, Desi, you maybe talk a little bit about the impact of COVID too.
Absolutely, Susan. And, and you hit the nail on the head rightly when you said that, these changes are myriad, really. They're still unfolding. And, some of these changes are probably still even yet to emerge. So, whilst practitioners have different views about the extent and consequences of this kind of upending to some extent of what was the established order, really, one perspective I think is really ringing true, and that we know that Australian law as we know it is really shaping up to look vastly different to those pre-pandemic conditions. And really, and how a lot of us are seeing it, is that the Australian legal marketplace will never be the same again, but it's unquestionably a really good outcome. And from what you were saying as well, we've seen that the pandemic's really supercharged the digital transformation of law. We've seen firms and in-house teams, they've adopted a host of new tech and digital processes, such as, we've seen online dispute resolution platforms, we've seen electronic execution, and we've seen smart legal contracts and blockchain in only a matter of weeks. So, for example, just to give you some context, in April, we had the enaction of the Omnibus Act to amend legislation that was allowing for the making of regulations in response to the coronavirus pandemic. For those that are studying corporations law or about to study corporations law, you'll probably be all over the recent changes of, Section 127(1) of the Corporations Act, which is allowing people to sign, company officers particularly, to sign documentation electronically, and also the attendance of annual general meetings from people's home environments as well, because people aren't able to do that in person by virtue of the fact that we are in this lockdown situation. We've seen the lodgement of paper transactions in New South Wales. We've seen online court hearings, particularly in the federal court jurisdiction. Platforms such as Zoom have allowed practitioners, barristers to appear via video for proceedings, and documents can be witnessed on a screen. It really is phenomenal. And really what we've seen from COVID is that, it seemed to have drawn a bit of a line in the sand in which legal professionals and businesses will kind of be forced to some extent to, to get on the train or get off the tracks to some extent when it comes to, upskilling in these digital platforms and products. And this is why it really is so important to stay relevant in this rapidly changing landscape. So thanks. Yeah, thanks, Susan.
Yeah. We'd never ever imagine that we could have done this in this period of time. It's
not at all.
Really unprecipitated.
Absolutely.
Yeah, amazing. All right. So the next slide is what I look at in terms of the influences on what impacts on your career. So the whole concept of a career and career progression has changed so significantly over time. So there has been a dramatic shift of managing career development and whose responsibility it is. So it's gone very much from the concept of management and your manager as being responsible for driving your career to you actually owning it. So someone once pointed out to me that, the only person that can really drive your career and look after you is yourself. So it's really important that you take full accountability for that. And there's been a shift away from the traditional ladder career path, which has been very much linear, to a lattice or a non-linear model. So the components of what is important to actually taking the lead here is these five areas. So the knowing yourself is really, really critical, and often you could say that it actually is the start of the whole career the whole career management process. So thinking about your strengths, thinking about your motivators, your needs and interests, really, really tuning into them. thinking about like how you can add value, which we talked about before. So how do you and how will you add value in this very, very like ever-changing environment and world that we live in? It's going to be about building your brand, and what do you want to be known for, and how do you communicate your value. It's about networking. And when I say networking, it's about building connections for mutual benefit. So it's really, really important, and we'll talk more about networking later on, that we don't look at this in a very kind of cold, mercenary, opportunistic way. It is always about the mutual part of that. And the last area is the adapting and the growing. So this is really feeding into that anticipating change, growing your skills and experience, and building resilience. Just very briefly, in terms of like some of the future skills, these are through the World Economic Forum. And if you just have a flick through them, I think kind of the important thing here is just to future-proof your career. It's around building competencies in areas that actually can't be automated by machines. So some of these will be around the emotional intelligence, the creativity, the people management, the coordinating with others. So there is always going to be the future of law here, and it's important. Then the need to understand the practice of law is still critical, and also understanding the human element, and to be able to connect and reach out to individuals and clients. So I think kind of that's the critical skills to remember in this lot. I think, Desi, you're going to talk about the one specific to the legal profession.
Absolutely, Susan. And, I like the point that you make there as well, that, we need to make sure that and the reality is that there is digitization as well. We need to, make sure that the digitization doesn't come at the cost of the human element, which is, as you were saying, part of those key skills that you highlighted earlier, such as, forming those strong relationships and learning. We seem to be in life very focused on the and in life. So we need to, not lose sight of the benefits and, benefiting from the great changes that have, occurred recently as well, but still maintaining the strength that's what made us thrive over many decades as a profession as well, and the key skills that we need for that. So in terms of the key skills sought in the legal profession, and I'm going to be highlighting some of of those key skills, particularly that we've seen as a result of the pandemic, which is particularly focused on technology as well. But let's look at some of the other ones, because I'll finish up with that as well before we move on. But firstly, that entrepreneurial and innovative mindset as well. We know that students and graduates, they often think that, that they only require entrepreneurial skills if they, tend to become an entrepreneur, if they want to set up their own business. But it's really important to remember here that employers often seek an entrepreneurial mindset in their graduate recruits. And this is these graduates are an asset because they're able to spot those gaps in the market and innovate, and because ultimately they're commercially minded. So, at the end of the day, we have to acknowledge the fact that, large law firms all the way down to sole practitioners, they're running businesses. So that you need to know about and apply good practice, business practices, including understanding what those drivers of their own costs are and the markets that they're facing as well. Equally, if you're going into an in-house department in community legal centres, you need to be operating within some level of financial constraint as well. So it's also frequently said that commercial clients want lawyers who understand and who actually understand their businesses and how they define value, which includes, really comprehending the client's financial drivers and constraints to that as well. So if we look at that commercial awareness as well, we know that to succeed in any professional job, we must continuously be developing our commercial awareness, and working on this skill is going to be a daily occurrence, as each day is going to bring the arrival of new information on local, national and world business as well. So it's really important when you're working at a law firm to acknowledge that, it runs as a business, which means meeting those deadlines, keeping costs low, handling information confidentially as well, particularly with the influxes in technology as well. We're seeing that more predominantly as well. And, you could probably agree here, Susan, as well. A frequent comment in the recruitment process is that almost that there's not a huge amount of commercial awareness. So really it's important and understand what's going on in the world. So how do businesses and firms operate? How do they remain profitable? How are they impacted by events, and what are those impacts on an organisation? Because that's what's going to be fundamental to providing those customised solutions that clients are going to expect. So commercial awareness actually can go beyond keeping up to date with the happenings of the business world. So it can actually also mean having that worldwide experience. So COVID permitting, I would say that if you do get the opportunity to travel abroad, take that opportunity, because that's something that will assist you in standing out from the crowd. And it is often of particular interest to law firms and employers as well. And that's, for a number of reasons, such as global experience, that cultural awareness, sensitivity, and whilst it's also demonstrates your ability to be flexible, adaptable, self-sufficient, and open-minded as well. So, and that really feeds into that concept of resilience as well, that we know that legal practice is a stressful profession as well. So we know that the frequency and degree of change that legal profession has started to be exposed to, and which is expected to continue, suggests that we are going to be facing an extra layer of challenges than probably past generations, just because with these influxes in technology, as we were saying. But the responses to these challenges is to build resilience, which we'll be going into a little bit later as well. And namely, what I mean by that is looking at those resources that are going to assist in sustaining well-being in the face of adversity. A couple of other skills sought in the legal profession is knowledge of other cultures as well. So we know that law is about the relationships with others. So learning about cultures is what's going to be the best way to to derive that level of familiarity as well. We don't have to go into communication skills too much, but that's a key skill as well in the profession, and it's fundamental to our dealings with our clients and colleagues as well. The other one that's been spoken about a lot lately is when we're talking about that ability to apply IT as well, is the understanding of analytics as well. And we know that they're relevant to all facets of business and career, and really to be able to deconstruct what those analytics are. So, to understand it doesn't mean, being able to take 10% off an invoice for legal services, but we know that the world is, awash with data at the moment. It's 2020. We've got more than, 1 trillion interconnected devices that are constantly talking to each other at the moment. So really understanding how data is being generated and how it's used to harness and improve legal services as well. If we were to extend on that concept a little bit, is really to look at that technology is a tool that the practicing lawyer is really going to need to be able to use. And this ability may in turn allow the lawyer to focus on core skills as advisor and also as an advocate as well. And essentially there's two main different types of utilizations of technology and IT that we're seeing. And the first is that back office use of technology, which allows lawyers to run their own practices as well, if that's what you have in your sites as well. And the second is that client service applications, where all or some of the legal services provided is through technology. So as I was talking about earlier, document review in corporate transactions and litigation, where the lawyer needs to really be all over a range of offerings. And for yourselves as well as students, looking at going into practice, the aptitude really needs a number of elements. Firstly, and how I see it, it really needs to be that the lawyer needs to be able to identify technology that should be employed, because it's going to be the more efficient way to proceed. It's going to achieve the client's objective or the obligation in a cost-effective manner, which is ultimately what we should be focused on as lawyers. It's not that you have to create the legal tech yourself, although I know there's some universities across Australia that already have particular programs in place, such as learning how to code and develop apps. I know some unis have already begun to make available some electives such as law apps and hackathons. And for those that don't know, the law app is an elective where teams of students are assigned work within the legal service organisation using software packages to build an app which will assist in access to justice. So you've got that altruistic purpose at the core of it as well. And hackathons, which I'll be talking about a little bit later as well, as a way to get yourself better involved. I mean, that's looking at very intense collaborations between people with a variety of skills, which does include those computer programmers and developers and subject matter experts, which aim to solve a problem. So there's some fantastic ways as well where problems about access to justice or commercial legal problems can be addressed as well. So really, it's about proficiency in these skills, keeping abreast of what is down the track, particularly with these technological changes as well, which is obviously going to be the way of the future as well. So learning how to utilise these skills whilst not forgetting the core, the fundamental core of those soft skills that Susan was addressing as well, which has assisted in our fluid delivery of our profession. So thanks, Susan.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
The soft skills are always very, very critical. So it's not always just about the technical skills. It's very much about those other skills that you were mentioning before.
And that's what's going to differentiate, particularly when you've got like artificial intelligence and technologies. It's also, you know, I'll elaborate on that a little bit as well. It's about, you know, knowing about things like, particularly when you're looking at tech and, you know, inherent biases that are applied to technologies as well. It's looking at that from that you need to be a human to be able to, you know, make relevant calls on biases that are in algorithms within legal technology as well. So it's very interesting. Excellent.
Yeah. All right. Well, now, Desi, I think you're going to talk about the importance of grit.
Absolutely. So, I mean, obviously, Susan was saying this is very much dear to me, mental health and wellbeing as well. So, in the practical legal training work on-site week that we deliver at the college, we talk about resilience, particularly in a wellbeing in practice workshop. And we know that resilience, so let's just have a look at what resilience is. We know that it is, and it has been defined as that ability to bounce back from adversity. And really, some people have that ability to face adversity head on and keep moving despite experiencing a number of setbacks. You know, and it may seem if people who display levels of resilience, you know, are simply more emotionally or psychologically stronger than others. However, this isn't necessarily the case. We know that resilience is a learnt trait. And building resilience is a challenging journey, and individuals need to exert effort to choose those actions and strengthen their resilience with every new challenge that they face. So when we're looking at grit, it was a study that was conducted by Angela Duckworth, and it serves as an overriding factor that provides the stamina to stay the course amid challenges and setbacks. And you can see there that we need grit, and it really much encompasses that passion, that perseverance and stamina for the long-term goals that we have. Grit is about, and as you can see, it's a better predictor of achievement than IQ. And it's about working hard and really living life as though it's a marathon, not a sprint. So it does require you as well to persevere, to have patience as well. We develop grit through having this positive growth mindset rather than a fixed mindset. So there was a study conducted by positive psychologist Martin Seligman that one of the main reasons that lawyers suffer from dissatisfaction in their careers and poor mental health are due to mainly how, in application to this, the fact that many lawyers possess a pessimistic mindset. So what they do is they attribute the causes of negative events as being pervasive, permanent, and uncontrollable. Now, an optimist, on the other hand, will see them as local, temporary, and changeable. So we know, and it's really interesting because to address this here, that pessimism is maladaptive in most endeavours, but there is one glaring exception, that pessimists seem to do better at the law. Now, what the secret is to this is the fact that, and why do they do better at law? It's because seeing troubles as pervasive and permanent is a component of what the law deems as prudence. So really being able to see what could go wrong down the track as well. The secret to it, as I was saying, is to not take this mindset into other facets of our life, because it can be maladaptive in its other endeavours as well. So in order to we need to be adapting this positive growth mindset. And according to Carol Dweck, when an individual has this growth mindset, they believe that their abilities and intelligence can be developed with effort, learning, and persistence. Those with a fixed mindset believe their basic abilities, intelligence, and talents are fixed traits. Okay, so with a growth mindset, you'll believe that there's numerous stepping stones towards growth and development. and this mindset's founded essentially on the belief that your basis qualities are flexible and can be cultivated and can grow with dedication and time, that perseverance and that patience as well. So, for example, you know, if you are in your graduate year and you receive some negative feedback, you could take this one of two ways. You can say, okay, well, I'll take this feedback as a personal attack and catastrophize and personalize it, or you can look at it from that growth mindset and say, well, actually, no, I can see value in this feedback that I'm receiving. So really, it's about challenging that maladaptive pessimism that can creep in. That's not challenged for problem solving. So keeping that positive growth mindset as well is what we're aiming to do. So that's resilience in a nutshell.
Very good. Okay. All right. You're now going to just talk a little bit about managing your online brand. So do you want to...
yeah, I might talk about that as well, if that's all right, Susan.
Yeah.
So I thought we'd make it a little bit more interactive here, and I can see a couple of people have used the Q&A. If anybody wants to use the chat, let's just do a really quick survey on the chat feature here as well. What social media accounts does everyone use? Do you use Twitter? Do you use Facebook? Do you use Instagram, Google? Do you use LinkedIn as well? So, you know, whilst you're popping those into the chat feature there as well, I want you to have a think about how you use those. You know, which is professional, which is personal. Do they mix a little bit at all? Is there no clear boundary? So what's really important to take from this when you're managing your online brand is that every account online relates to your brand. So it's going to be up to you how you best manage it. So when we're talking about credibility, which I'm going to get to a little bit later as well, you know, we're acknowledging that it's a new brand world. And whether this means, and it's regardless of age, regardless of position, regardless of the business we happen to be in, all of us need to really be cognizant about the importance of branding. So how I like to look at it, and Susan always thinks this is a bit funny, each of you are the CEO of your own company, and I like to call it it's Me Inc. So really, it's about, you know, sharing your online crafts. Well, really, what it is, it's sharing online crafts, your online persona that reflects your personal values and professional skills. So, for example, if you voice a political opinion on Twitter, or you've got a public profile on Instagram where you're posting what you got up to on the weekend. You know, you've got to know that these are placed in the public arena and your virtual blueprint will be following you. So even if you use it only occasionally, you've got to remember that the content that you share or react to feeds into that public narrative. And it's really interesting. I was speaking to a privacy barrister recently, Susan, who was telling me that there are these new analytics out there now that are utilised by employers to run risk assessments on candidates as well. So it can actually marry you up and match you up to the names and different sorts of things, you know, suburbs and places you may have lived in your application process that can run a risk assessment. So you need to be really mindful of what you post.
Amazing.
It is. But yeah, the technology's out there now. We need to know, when we're talking about data is the way of the world now. So we need to know that the computers now are that far advanced now that they can do risk assessments based on candidates, depending on what they might have posted online. So really, just in summary, it's really how you conduct yourself online is just as important as your behavior offline as well. So you need to assume that you're going to be Googled, and your Facebook is going, you know, your Facebook profile will probably be checked out at some stage as well. So I always like to say, and we say that your brand is what people will be saying about you when you're not in the room as well. So and really just in managing your online brand, I like to say that in identifying the qualities or characteristics that make you distinctive from your competitors or your colleagues, it's really important to, you know, have a think about what they might be. Have a think about what your product or your service does that makes you different, that sets you apart from other people as well. And if you don't, know, it's probably, a great idea to, to ask some family or friends, tell me a little bit about me. What would your colleagues or friends say is, your greatest and clearest strength as well? Ask yourself, what do you do that adds that remarkable, measurable, distinguished or distinctive value? Ask yourself also, and I think this is really important, ask yourself what you're most proud of. Okay, what have you accomplished that you can brag about? And this is the time that you need to be bragging, when you're promoting your brand as well. And, you know, because that's what's going to give you that value add as well, and set you apart from someone else as well. So thanks, Susan.
All right. I noticed that the questions are coming in, so we're going to have to just make sure that we have a lot of time for those. Desi, you're so passionate when you speak. I love it. In terms of the next slide, let me just see. Okay, so this one is positioning yourself for opportunities, and I love to refer to this theory of happenstance, and it's called Crumbolt's theory. And basically the theory is that we make our own luck. So by putting ourselves out there and taking risks and speaking to people, being curious and having conversations, we're going to be in a better position to actually grab and reach opportunities. So it's all important about that optimistic outlook as well, and we talked about that before, and that can actually help turn serendipity into opportunity. So it really reinforces the importance of engaging in a variety of interesting and beneficial activities. And these don't just have to be inside law. So I think it's kind of really, really critical for students to also know that they're going to be getting a lot of value, and they're going to be building their different skills through lots of other experiences. So to work on your communication, your interpersonal skills, you don't necessarily have to do that in a law firm. You can get those skills outside of an organisation. You can get that through your retail, hospitality type roles that you might be doing whilst you're putting yourself through university. So I think it's also important to remember that you don't necessarily have to have the master plan. And if COVID is one thing that has taught us, is that a master plan and having just the one plan is not really practical. And that we need to have like a multitude of plans. And we have to trust that our passions and our interests will help us along the way. So the other thing here is that don't forget to do things outside of law as well. So we need to kind of carve out time for interests, and whatever those interests are, they can actually end up making you a more interesting and a more well-rounded candidate. So kind of keep on learning and take an interest in all the kind of the opportunities that are around you. So I'm just going to briefly touch on the concept of advertised search, and really the ways that we can secure positions are through advertised search, which is really going onto your Seeks, looking at Indeed and the various websites that are out there. However, by doing that, and I think that it is important that you still keep doing that, but you also need to expand and broaden beyond that. And the reason for this is just given the actual number of candidates that are applying for positions. So extend your job search strategy and start to look at those opportunities through what we call the hidden market or the back door. And the way of doing that is basically starting to build your network. And it's never too early to be doing that. And you could really argue that you should be doing that from the very, very early years of university. And in terms of people, I can hear you saying, but I don't have a network, I don't know anyone. I mean, your network can be family, it can be friends, it can be lecturers, it can be other students, people that you've worked with. So it's important that you start reaching out and connecting with the profession early. And it's also part of being proactive is that you need to somehow feel comfortable with having those uncomfortable conversations and pushing yourself out there outside of your comfort zone. So in a time like this with the networking, particularly for us Victorians, it's harder to network when you can't actually have a cup of coffee and sit opposite a person, but you still can Zoom. And you still can connect with people. So, you know, don't give up on that concept. But we will talk a little bit about that concept of mutual value. So I think that when you are networking, I think one of the important things to remember is that it has to be of mutual value. You need to be genuinely interested in that area of law, or maybe a few areas, and you need to be kind of, when you're reaching out to people to have conversations, you need to research them, research the practice areas, have a list of questions, so that if you do make contact with them, it needs to be very purposeful, and it needs to be conscious of the fact that people don't have a lot of time. So just be aware of that you can't just look at networking as a quick flick and a way of getting quick answer. Okay, over to you, Desi.
Thanks, Susan. And, really part of any one of the processes that you'll be learning about when you do your PLT and go into practice as well is, if you're assisting a client, even in purchasing a business, is due diligence. And we know that's an essential key skill of any lawyer as well. So doing your due diligence is so important here as well, isn't it? So really looking at, utilising your local law society, such as, the find a lawyer services that are available. And how do we do that? You might search by an area of law or location as well. Target those suburban country law firms as well. So don't limit yourself. I think that's what Susan was getting at as well. So really just putting out all your feelers as well to every network that's available as well. Drive around your local area as well. A lot of people, had sights of working at, top tier, middle tier firms as well, but then find that, they get more hands-on experience, with a sole practitioner as well. So it's also important to research organisations of interest, such as the practice areas and clients that you're interested in as well, because ultimately you want to be in an area of law and a practice area that's going to interest you as well. And how do we do it as well? It's about following companies as well, following them on LinkedIn, following them on Facebook and Twitter, and making comments as well. So the power of LinkedIn, and I know that Jackie Owen, the relationships manager at Queensland, had a session yesterday, and she was talking all about the power of LinkedIn, and it is phenomenal the way that you can actually extend your networks via just simple commenting and following and reposting things that you might have seen in a webinar or something like that. I'll talk about that in a sec. So staying abreast of also what's happening in the profession. As I was saying, comment, joining webinars. I'll give you a quick example. Because of COVID, there's so many free webinars. I joined the International Bar Association, had a number of free webinars. They still do. Highly recommend to jump on and have a look. And it gives you the ability to be able to comment as well. Afterwards, link in with the people that you've seen. Tell them that you thought it was really valuable as well. And, some opportunities that have arisen on my behalf have been exactly through doing that. It's not going to come to you. You have to actually be proactive and go out there and do it. And then you'll see it's amazing just how other little doors just start opening all over the place. People will ask you, do you want to have a Zoom? Do you want to talk about this? And your network start just opening up more and more. We've got their Lawyers Weekly as well. Just stay abreast of what's happening, because that really just reinforces that commercial awareness as well. The Australian and the Australian Financial Review, Friday legal section there too.
I mean, I'm sure there's a lot more other ways of keeping up to date, but just a few. Yeah, the Chambers and Partners is really good for also seeing which firms are out there, and you can search by regions. So this one here just talks about some of the volunteering websites. So just to keep an eye that they're at your fingertips, and there's always there's often positions that are being advertised there. I know that with COVID, obviously, that's just thrown a little bit of a spanner in the works, but I think it's just good to keep an eye out on that. And it covers so many different areas. So whether you are looking at working with refugees or women or youth or senior rights, Indigenous, it's just something for you to definitely get involved in. You're going to talk a little bit, Desi, about how you can build this professional collateral, which we have touched on already, but do you want to just cover that?
Yeah, I'll just cover a couple of points that we haven't looked at already. So as Susan was saying as well, you just have to start being proactive, okay? Getting involved, talking to people, being curious as much as you can. As I said, it won't come to you. You have to put yourself out there if you want to actually see things and see doors start opening up as well. So have a think about, do you know anyone that's in a legal role that you could approach? You could have a chat to. Are there any opportunities maybe to shadow and observe for those that might be interested in, in the litigation process, or perhaps even contemplating going to the bar one day? If you could even just speak to a barrister and say, hey, could I potentially just shadow you in court for a week? And usually they're more than happy to let you, to sit in and assist. If possible. It might be conducting an informational interview. So, a week in the life of, writing some opinion pieces, and you might even want to, post these up on LinkedIn as well. Just these opinion pieces, which gets your content out there and makes you relevant and makes you current as well. There's the local law society. ALSA for uni students is one of those fantastic networks where you can you do have the opportunity to share pieces. I know that ALSA has a wellness newsletter that they're putting out in the next couple of months, and that's open up to students to contribute to the newsletter and write some articles, and that gets your name out there. That makes you current. Then you share that on LinkedIn, and people look at that, and that starts opening those doors up. So, really looking at attending those industry events as well. If there's functions and events on, go to them, forge those networks and conferences. And whether that be, uni events, I don't know if you can see on that slide there, university events, networking events, and as I was saying, the value of those webinars and forging those networks. Even though we're behind a computer, we still can network.
Absolutely.
So thanks, Susan.
All right.
And I think I was going to touch on a little bit about just sharing that knowledge from here on in the next slide here as well. Joining the committee as part of your law society as well. Eventually, when you go out into practice, I know that the Law Institute has the little subcommittees within it as well, which look at particular community issues, law reform, and also later lawyers as well. There's also specific legal interest associations. You've got there in terms of human rights, the UNNA and the Caston Centre as well. There's the technological groups as well, such as the Legal Forecast Connect. They've just done a fantastic mentoring program. I think they're about to launch it again as well. So students can actually get themselves involved in that as well. Legal hackers, as I was talking about the legal hackathon, really looking at that design thinking where everyone comes together from different kind of disciplines and you sit there and you map out a problem. And that's been really adopted in a lot of the firms as well, because one of the main focuses is particularly with lawyers emerging from, early students moving into practice, is that they want to be in firms that are willing to innovate as well. And really it's about, as I said, they're right for the young lawyers blogs, young lawyers journals. They're always up for fresh new content as well. So it's just about, developing that community of collaboration as much as possible.
Absolutely.
Would you agree, Susan, that the reason that we're really getting at all of this is it's really all about just promoting the visibility? And that's what I say. It's about, and visibility, I think, has got an amazing way of multiplying, when I was talking about LinkedIn particularly as well.
Yeah, look, I do think that's the case, and that's the snowball effect, where you start doing a couple of things and it ends up opening up other opportunities.
Definitely.
But I mean, students don't have to do it all at once. I mean, they've got law degrees take a while, so you can even just set yourself some goals to do a few things each semester. Oh my gosh, look at the time. We're running out of time, so we'll just quickly speed through this. The importance of finding a mentor. I mean, my feeling is that everyone needs a mentor at some stage in their career, and everyone that has kind of gone into leadership roles, etc., will always talk about their mentor, and people have mentors right throughout their career as well. So there are some organisations that specifically do run more formalised mentor programs. So check out your law society. The Bar Association also do have mentoring opportunities for students, and also like the women's lawyers do as well. But I just will say one thing, which I mentioned before about the networking, is that always remember that to approach it from a perspective of mutual value. So go in with a a gift, not just an ask. So kind of thinking about how you might be able to help that mentor in some way, whether it's even kind of on the digital side, the technological side. It might be writing a blog, or it might be interviewing them and then putting something on LinkedIn to thank them. I mean, it could be like a whole lot of reasons, but don't, go just in there with a mindset and what's in it for me. It's also very much a two-way street. Desi, do you want to cover
I'll just summarise those, because I know we are a little bit pushed for time.
Yeah.
But off the back of your point there, it's just so important, and that mutual benefit is what that whole mentorship program is about. As I was talking about that, if anyone is interested in technology, there is the Legal Forecast Connect. I've got their second rounds if anyone's wanting to look further into that as well. And there's people from all various disciplines as well, from startups and other areas as well that and coming into it from that lens as well, that you can equally, it's that reciprocal mentorship and menteeship that will derive from that as well. So looking at credibility and reputation, we know they're critical. It's really important to be playing into your strengths and articulating those transferable skills. It's also important as well that to remind yourself of the achievements and celebrate those small victories. So very natural to let self-doubt creep in as well. So reminding yourself of those accomplishments, that you have made in your life as well, and really keeping that growth mindset, keeping that grit alive, and keep persevering is what's going to assist you in eventually, securing a position that is what you were looking for. We know that your reputation is your greatest asset, so it's important to cultivate your brand early as well. We talk about reputation. Law is a occupation that is very much reputational based. They talk about reputation takes a lifetime to generate, but 5 minutes to lose it. So you need to be remembering as well, everything you're doing is representative of your brand ultimately as well. Don't assume that your good work alone will speak for itself. Think about all those value adds, all of those, the networks that you're forging, all of the other different things that you're bringing to a potential employer as well. That's going to set you aside from other applicants as well. And yeah, as it's written there as well, it takes you obviously the years to develop that reputation and seconds to destroy it. So just remember to to make sure that you're cognizant of what you post always.
And I think this is kind of like a nice way to finish the session. So a lovely quote from Nelson Mandela. So I think it's kind of about remembering your worth and being confident in your abilities. The fact that you've got through law school, you're going through law school, you're doing your PLT, you've done so much already and overcome probably so many obstacles along the way. So just, the power of self-belief is kind of really important as well. That brings us to the end of our kind of formal sessions. So let's have a look at some of the questions. If I'm going to just pull those up, and let's see if we can just cover some of those. So the first one is about a student that's actually come from Hong Kong and they're wanting to start their career in Australia. Working opportunities during PLT. So they're wanting to know whether they can work during PLT. So I think that there should be, that would depend on their rights to work. So I think kind of that would be something that they would need to find out on their visa conditions. But I think it's kind of, it would be about reaching out and having conversations with people and finding out if there are opportunities. Because I imagine that there would be some opportunities even in kind of the local firms and doing some volunteering. More so than working in government, where you would need to have the permanent residency and the Australian citizenship. This question is specifically for you, Desi, about blockchain. How does this affect our lives in the profession, and would smart contracts have anything of use for everyday transactions not related to money?
Well, I'm just thinking. I'm trying to work out what exactly Well, obviously, I was talking about, smart contracts, and without going into too much information, detail about blockchain, I think it is definitely something that we're seeing, across all different industries, particularly in property, particularly in insurance as well, and even, to a much lesser extent when we're looking at, postal and delivery services as well, how you obviously, that apportionment of money is delivered dependent on when things actually come into, delivery dates and things like that come into play there as well. So I'm not quite sure exactly what that is asking. Yeah, I'm thinking in terms of, it is most definitely something that we're seeing across the legal industry as well. So I mean, I'm happy to take that one offline so I can better answer that if we have the opportunity to.
Someone's just talked about having an IT background for seeking roles. I would say that would have to be, it could only be an advantage, an extra thing to have, and obviously you would feel very comfortable in the technology space. So definitely play that one up.
Well, and I think there's Susan as well that, it's really about, I saw something that said that, lawyers don't necessarily need to definitely all know how to code, or, as much as an aspiring doctor needs to know how to build lasers or, fabricate surgical instruments. What it's about is knowing how to use the technology. So that's where, but most definitely, if you have that additional skill, there'll be opportunities there for you to have that value add as well, in terms of being able to understand it and potentially even generate some kind of an app that might facilitate better client services there as well.
Yeah, and that's like a really big thing. I know that, like, on one of the panels last night for unconventional lawyers, there was one of the lawyers there that was just focused on continuous improvement and always
Yeah.
how can we make things more efficient,
Yes.
rather than just doing things the way they've always been done. Yeah, look, I apologise for disabling chat. I didn't even realise I had done that, so I'm very sorry. So quite a few people came back frustrated with that, so apologies for that. Someone's also just mentioned here about the suburb matching for risk assessment, that can be unlawful.
Yeah,
So,
I did. I do. Yeah, I remember saying that as well. And it's really interesting for this person that's written in this. This has been something that even I've felt very, is how ethical could that be? But the truth of the matter is, I sat in a session where Dean of Flinders University, Tanya Lehman, actually put that question to everyone as well when she was talking about, insurers, doing risk assessments based on where they are able, through data analytics and tracking phone devices to some extent, the analytics can actually work out from that most frequented places, and then basically from that information derive what's your locality and things like that as well. So basically doing those risk assessments and bumping up insurance premiums based on that as well. So yeah, I couldn't agree more that with the obviously with technology, it's going to pose a lot of ethical issues as well. In the US, we did a fantastic, I don't know if any of you joined in for Law Week as well this year, but we did and we had some fantastic panelists who were patent attorneys and IT, AI experts as well, where we talked about in terms of algorithms that we're seeing now, particularly in the US, for those that are interested. There are algorithms now that determine sentencing. So what they do is, obviously someone has to create the program, the software, and embed it with these. And I suppose the person that actually creates it embeds it with their own bias. So the ethical considerations that are coming out of that are quite interesting. So we're going to be seeing a lot in that space, but couldn't agree more with you on that. But that's just what I've been hearing from a privacy barrister colleague of mine, that's kind of the sorts of things that we're seeing. So maybe you need to write an article, opinion piece on the ethical considerations around that. That'll be something.
There's a question about the social media presence, not having one as being good, bad, or neutral. Look, I would say that you do need to have some type of social media presence, because organisations will look you up, and they might not use it as a way of necessarily recruiting, but it still is important that they can find you. So I think kind of that is definitely important, that you put that out there, because otherwise when someone wants to get in contact with you or search you up, they're not going to be able to find you, particularly on LinkedIn.
And I think that's probably, yeah, but I think at least I think LinkedIn is very important, particularly if you're in the application process as well. You've got that presence. People can see, they can put a face to the name. So eventually when you come in there, you're more familiar as well. So
yeah. There's another question about any short tech IT courses, free or otherwise, that you would recommend for young lawyers to upskill and increase awareness. Are there any specific legal technologies that young lawyers should be able to utilise? I mean, fantastic questions. I mean, I would probably be asking people that are out there in the profession. I don't know. What do you think?
I think, I mean, in terms of coding, I mean, it's very divided in what people think as well. Some people believe that coding is a necessary skill, so some universities are teaching it to their students, and some aren't. So it is quite a divided debate. I do think, at the very least, we need to have a really solid. This is how I see it, and from speaking with some people, experts as well. I do think that we need to have a really solid understanding of data, because data is the way of the future. We need to understand the analytics process as well, because that's what's going to assist, I think, in better client delivery as well, and make your business, and firm, because ultimately you've got to remember, it is a business as well. Whilst you're delivering client services, it's ultimately a business. So ensuring that it's going to be profitable, ensuring that from an ethical perspective as well, that you're delivering cost-effective means of the work that you do for them as well. So understanding technologies that are going to assist you to do that as well. But I don't know any off the top of my head now, but there is a few courses that are rolling around, I have seen, in terms of understanding basic data and IT, to see what the sorts of nuances of that are as well. So keep your eyes open for that. I did see a course though recently. I'm not quite sure where it was though. I think there's another one there, Susan.
There's a question here about the clerkship. Yeah, there's about the clerkship application process, and this student's just saying that they've received a bunch of rejection letters. It's interesting because I'm running a session on that next month with a group of panelists that haven't gone the clerkship way. So I think in terms of, like, it sounds like you're working part-time, you're studying full-time, and one of the feedback that you got was about not having enough extracurricular. So how you fit that in is a good question. I think it's maybe around trying to be involved in some of those activities that we were talking about before, as much as you can. I mean, obviously, you don't want to wear yourself thin, but I think it's really, really important that you think of that. Yeah. We've got one more question about job vacancies that overseas students can apply for. Once again, I mentioned that before, that there are opportunities that are advertised sometimes on the College of Law, looking out for those opportunities that are advertised, but also just trying to approach and speak to people and keep connected and hear what they have to say. That brings us to an end, and we've got 2 more minutes. Oh, there's another question that's come in. What resources does College of Law have for job seeking? Well, you can make an appointment. Well, actually, if you're obviously a College of Law student, I'm happy to have a conversation, but otherwise, I know that we are putting out resources that are available under resources on the College of Law website. Just go into that tab and you'll see that there are some webinars that you can get sent, and you can listen to those on a whole range of topics. So yeah, feel free to make yourself available to those.
And I think, Susan, really, I don't think is there any questions that have come in? Oh, there is. There you go. Do you want to answer that one? I'll finish up.
Yes. So we'll send you the details of the webinar next month. Desi's running one on time management, and I'm running a panel on the 7th. Oh gosh, no, sorry, on the 16th of September. That will be run at 12:30, and I'll have 3 panelists, all from different walks of life. So that will be advertised under events on the college website as well. And just keep an eye out there. Yeah.
There's one more question, I think, about whether this is recorded. So
yeah, it is recorded. So all the sessions from the practice series will be available. They're all being recorded. So that would definitely have a lot of listening to do. And yeah, thank you very much. Just check one more. Nope, we've got some nice thank yous. So yeah, we'll end off now and hope that you found it really valuable. Just to mention, don't forget that there's some more sessions that are being run this week. So yeah, just jump onto the events page and you'll see. And there's one I know tonight that is for lay lawyers, and that's at 5:30. But yeah, there's a whole lot of other ones that are being run too. Yeah, that sounds great. All right, thank you, Desi, for your wisdom and advice, and I really appreciate that, and I hope that students have found the session valuable. Yeah, just keep at it. I know you have to be extra resilient, but you know, small steps, be brave, be courageous. You'll get there, you really will. Thank you.
Absolutely. Thank you very much, everyone.